guys. Well, good evening, folks. Thank you very much for joining us here at the WFLA Now desk. It is election night 2018. The midterm elections are finally upon us, and we've assembled a great group of experts as well as representatives from each party to go through the results tonight and analyze each one of these races. We have a lot on the ballot. It took a lot of people a long time to vote, and this is going to be a show that will be on from 7 o'clock until 11 p.m. tonight. We'll get in detail on a lot of these big races, talk about the dozens of other races hanging in the balance. We'll also go through some of the amendments and even get down to some of the granular level on some of those city and community and county races as well. First, I want to introduce you to everyone who is joining me here. To my right, this is Alma Gonzalez. She is a Democrat who is going to be here with us for the evening. Dr. Ed Benton from the University of South Florida. This is Travis Horn, a PR executive and a Republican, and we have Richard Harrison here, who is an attorney and an expert on felons' voting rights. You may recognize him from our show, Politics on Your Side. On Sunday mornings, he was on with Reggie Garcia a few weeks ago to duke it out about Amendment 4, and we'll get into that a little bit more as we get through the evening. We're going to start seeing some results roll in here soon. Polls close at 7 o'clock, and so we'll begin to bring those to you as soon as we get them, and we'll also talk to some reporters who are on the ground at the watch parties for each one of the major candidates. Of course, the U.S. Senate race between Bill Nelson and Rick Scott, and the gubernatorial race between Andrew Gillum and Ron DeSantis. And we actually have a live reporter that we'd like to go to now. Our own Melanie Michael is in Orlando at the Ron DeSantis watch party. And Melanie, tell us how things are going there.
Hey, Evan, good evening to you. As you know, it's been a busy day for Ron DeSantis. Starting this morning, it was very, very early in Ponte Vedra when he voted with his family, showing up at the polling place. He had his daughter asleep in his arms as he was walking there with his wife, of course, and their young son. And really tonight, one of the biggest things about this race is the Republicans coming out to vote. As you know, Ron DeSantis has said all along, in order for him to win this race, to secure the governor's seat, he's got to have those Republicans turning out today, because yesterday Gillum had a slight lead, and today the DeSantis campaign actually saying that they are up possibly 2 points in the polls right now as those polls are closing across the state of Florida and at 8 o'clock in the Panhandle. But this is going to be, no doubt, one of the tightest races, one of the tightest margins in the entire country, battling it out from the very beginning. You know, the DeSantis campaign started back on January 29th. That's when he announced his candidacy. And he is an outspoken Trump supporter, you know that. He's also touted a lot of his leadership qualities, talking about his experience being a congressman, a longtime congressman, being an Iraq veteran, and also being a leader in his community and being a former prosecutor. Now, will the voters agree? We have yet to see. These two are very, very different. Their issues are very different, as you know, and some of those debates that we watched, I tell you what, some of my colleagues who cover the debates say that it was some of the most contentious, controversial campaign debates they have ever seen, that sometimes it was so intense in the room that you kind of had to take a breath for a moment to say, what in the world is going on here? They're very, very different. They have very different values, Democrat, Republican, we know that, but the candidates themselves, DeSantis coming out very strong, immigration, gun safety, those are some of his biggest issues that he has touted. Also staunchly opposed to sanctuary cities. So when we talk about some of the issues across the state of Florida, and this being one of the biggest races in the state, in the country really, DeSantis hoping that he can pull out a win tonight. As I mentioned earlier, the day started very early in Ponte Vedra. The last 24 hours they've been doing that crisscrossing across the state. The candidates often do. The last push for the last final votes on Election Day. They were in Pinellas County yesterday, as you know. He's a Dunedin High School graduate. They stopped in Vero Beach up in the Panhandle for Hurricane Michael to kind of survey some of that area, in Fort Walton and Jacksonville as well, and then ending up in Orlando today. I had been told by the campaign manager just moments ago that the family is in the hotel. We are coming to you live here at the Rosen Center and Convention Center. The hotel is on International Drive, where a lot of hotels are, and I can tell you this room is absolutely packed tonight. The supporters, the doors have been open for a while now. The supporters coming in quickly to take part in the whole election night revelry. But tonight, DeSantis is going to be watching those numbers closely, as Gillum is as well in Tallahassee. This is going to be, in true Florida style, as we like to say, a very, very close race up until the bitter end. And those numbers probably coming in at the very last minute. We're going to be seeing maybe some late hours tonight for all of us. But the DeSantis campaign, he's saying he fought a hard race, a long race, again, starting back in January. And he's confident, he says, the voters will vote him into the governor's mansion and that he will be the next leader of the state of Florida. We will have to see once those numbers start to come in, but we know it is a lot to talk about as the Gillum campaign, again, in Tallahassee tonight, and the DeSantis campaign here at the Rosen Center live in Orlando. So, Evan, we'll keep an eye on it for you, and a busy night indeed as those numbers start to come in, but I tell you what, this is going to be a close one to call, so we'll watch those numbers and we'll continue our live reports.
WFLA's Melanie Michael live in Orlando at the DeSantis campaign. Thank you so much, Melanie. I want to get to our reporter live on the scene, Chip Osowski in Orlando, in just a moment. But before we do that, I want to get to you, Richard. Your first impressions. We didn't have a chance to go to you before we went to Melanie there.
Sure. I'm going to go way out on a limb here, Evan, and suggest that things in Florida are going to be very, very close.
Travis, but first let's go out to News Channel 8's Peter Bernard. He is down in Naples at the Rick Scott watch party, and that's why I wanted to talk to him first before we go to you, Travis. Peter, what's happening there? It's pretty lively there.
It has turned pretty lively. It's in the last 45 minutes or so. People are now filtering into this ballroom here. It's at the Playa Beach and Golf Resort in Naples. As you know, Rick Scott calls this his home when he's not in Tallahassee. So people are starting to come in, and they've got big monitors up there where we expect some of the numbers to start flowing in. And you can see the podium behind me. That's where we expect him to speak to us once some solid figures come in. It'll either be a concession speech or some a celebration out here. So it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. As you know, this is a race that is being watched all across the country. And to that end, I'm in the front row of a group of reporters and photographers from all over the state, and for all over the nation for that matter. We've got CNN and Fox and all the affiliates from Miami and Orlando and some of the other larger cities, Jacksonville. So they're all here to see what's going to happen and what Rick Scott's going to tell the folks once those numbers start flowing on in. As it stands right now, obviously we don't have any of those because we're waiting for the Panhandle to the polls to close there. As you know, they've closed in most of Florida in the last, let me look at my watch here, about 25 minutes or so. So I'm going to estimate maybe 100 or so people here. I think this place is going to get really jamming once those numbers start to flow, and we're hoping to talk to some of the folks that are here. I believe this is an invitation-only event, so they are all solid Rick Scott supporters. Evan, we'll throw it back to you. You got some questions for me?
Great. No, well, Peter, actually, I will have some questions for you, certainly, as we get later on in the evening. But you were talking about the results not quite finished yet. I want to get to some of them here in Hillsborough, but we will definitely talk to you later. Thanks so much, Peter. I want to get to some results here. We've got some slates that we can put up here for you. We'll start with the Senate race here. And this is with 7% of precincts reporting, if my eyes are doing me well enough there. And look at that. 50% to 50%. I mean, I can't even tell right there, but we're talking about, what is that? 2,700 votes, maybe? Somewhere in that neighborhood.
Just 7% reporting. Huh?
I mean, just
that's good for us because of the Panhandle. Again, what time is it?
It is 7:39 right
so
now.
So it's not yet. The polls aren't yet closed in the Panhandle.
Okay.
So we've still got a lot of time.
Let's go. We're going to go right to the governor here. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Alma, but I think these are scrolling through, so we want to catch them while they're here. This is the governor's race, 51% to 48. You're seeing about 100,000 votes difference again with 7% of precincts reporting. So. Again, very tight. That's not a surprise right there. We'll go to the Attorney General's race. Ashley Moody ahead, 52% to 47%. Yeah. Only 4% of precincts reporting there. I think a lot of people expect that to be somewhere around the result here tonight.
I expect Ashley to pull that race out.
Even more so?
Her, one of the statewide officers that I feel the most comfortable about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, here's the Hillsborough County referendum. This is the transportation and road improvements. 57% are voting yes. These are people who are voting to increase their own taxes here. That's important to remember.
What was the percentage of precincts reporting on that?
I was only 1, I believe. And then, again, only 1% here for referendum 3. This is the half-penny sales tax for schools. 56 to 44. Look, folks, we're talking about 1% of precincts reported. We just want to bring you the official results as we get them, but obviously it is way early in the game tonight. Amendment 3 here, voter control of gambling with 3% of precincts. Yes, 72% of people say that they support Amendment 3. Interesting. Again, super early here. Nothing yet on Amendment 4. And so we obviously are going to see much more throughout the evening in terms of those results. And, and anything there that stood out to you, Alma?
Well, to me, the closeness of the senatorial race is not a surprise to me. I'm surprised by what we're seeing in terms of the Nikki Fried Caldwell race. That's currently at 50-50. I expect that Jeremy Ring will pull it out in terms of the CFO. I want to talk a little bit about, Travis keeps talking about, our North Florida card that we're going to play, but let's think about not just Duval County, but what I've seen also happen in Escambia County. That's Pensacola. Pensacola, another county that was totally bright red before, shifted to purple and is now leaning blue. It is, if you look at the primary numbers, Andrew Gillum's stronghold in Northwest Florida was Pensacola, was Escambia County. They are a remarkable group of activists up there. I'm really proud of the work that they're doing. And I think that to say that North Florida is going to win it for you, I think you're going to see a number that you're going to be surprised about, because that part of North Florida is not continuing to trend Republican. They're starting to lean more towards the blue. One of the things that I think that we haven't had a chance to talk about that is really important, and that is the effect of women in this election. In our area right here, we fielded a female candidate in almost every single race. In almost every single race in the state. Our Senate races against 2 women. Women are leaning in, they're raising their hand, and they ought to be making a difference in this race. We're going to see whether when women run, we win. It's what we've said for a long time, and I think that we're going to see that. I am concerned about some of the races that we're going to see here and around the state, but we've seen that the key race in the state of Florida, as I talk to my friends in Tallahassee, all the lobby money, all the money from around the state, they are watching 2 races in Hillsborough County. They're watching our female candidate, Ventress Driscoll,
up at 63,
run against Sean Harrison. We think she's going to take that one.
She's very qualified.
And they're watching the Young Cruz seat, because again, they say to me, that's a game changer. Women are playing big in this race, and I'm going to be looking forward to some of the data on that.
And that's not just true here, but that's also true nationwide. 23 women are running for the Senate. That's a very high number. 235 are running for House seats. That's more than half of the House seats that there are. So the year of the woman, Travis?
You can't discount. I mean, you can't discount the impact of it. But having said that, you also, I wouldn't just say, hey, we're running women and we're going to win. Christine Carlson, you talked about that race, District 15. I think voters are more sophisticated than to just look at a race and say, I'm going to vote for the woman. If that was the case, my wife wouldn't have voted for Donald Trump and would have voted for Hillary Clinton. And I don't think she was alone in it. So.
You bring up a good point. We talked about this, again, I talked about this last night with Ryan Gorman on 970 WFLA AM. We hope to have him join us a little bit later on tonight. But I was talking about the number of people who, for both sides, maybe held their nose and voted either for Hillary, or I think in terms of that, more people did it the other way and said, I'm going to vote for Donald Trump. Maybe I don't agree with the way he acts. Maybe I don't agree with everything he does, but I don't like Hillary. And I think there was a lot of people who voted that way.
There could have been a few of those.
I think it's going to be interesting to see how they vote in this election, given that obviously it's not presidential and it's a midterm. Richard,
you know what, though? This race, and the professor talked a little bit about it too, this race, because of the way the primaries washed out, has been nationalized. It's been nationalized. I really don't like it. As a Floridian, I would have liked to have talked more about these community issues and these statewide issues, whether it be water quality or state health care initiatives and things like that, than talking about immigration and our national issues. It really took on a national tone, and I don't like that.
We are a national focal point. Florida matters, and we are the battleground of the battleground, the heart and the soul of this country because of the diversity that we have here. Immigration is a big deal to us as a state issue because of the number of people that we have in this state who are not insured. Healthcare is a big issue for us as a state issue because we're surrounded by water on 3 sides. Water quality and beach quality are a big deal issue for us. The fact that we must rely on science to take care of our environment, that's a big deal issue as a state. issue, not just a national issue. And the reason that Florida continues to be a focal point like that is because those issues that touch Florida touch the nation.
Yeah.
These gubernatorial, these off-year elections, these midterms we call them, they used to be a little bit of a respite from some of those partisan issues. I wish we could stay on that course, but given the tone nationally, maybe we can't.
Richard, your thoughts?
Well, 2016, I think you're right. A lot of folks maybe, I think about 130 million people voted in the last presidential election, and 120 million of them voted against somebody, not for somebody.
Seems like that. Fair. It really seemed like that.
And it's great that we have so many women running. It's great that we have so many minority candidates, but we have to be very careful always about making those assumptions that in the past I think a lot of people made about which way certain groups are going to vote. Because we're beginning to learn very clearly with each election that we probably need to stop thinking about voting blocks and start thinking about individuals.
Well, people are not monolithic, and they don't feel the same way about every issue, and we shouldn't treat them that way, Ed.
Oh yeah, there are issues and there are issues. I talk about in my courses salient issues. One highly charged, hot button issue can trump everything else, no pun intended.
Right, yeah.
I mean, it could be abortion,
Could be
it could be gay
healthcare
and
in
lesbian
this
rights,
race.
and all they want to know is, what is your position on that? I don't care. Everything else doesn't matter. We can fall in line. And because of that, that means it can change from election to election depending upon what the key issues are.
We've got
some. Except that I have to disagree in terms of that we no longer have voting blocks. Perhaps they're more amorphous than they used to be, but African American women, when they come to the polls to vote, they're going to be one of the most loyal constituents that we have in the Democratic Party. That's also true of Republican women. Republican women generally don't cross the aisle to vote for someone else. They're a very loyal voting bloc for
Alma,
Republicans.
as a woman, what do you think? What do you think makes that? Why is that?
I have to tell you, I think that that's a question that really works better for Ed, because Ed is the scientist. I am not going to sit here and speak for all women. I wonder, why do women do this or that? I believe that African American women are loyal to the Democratic Party because we speak for their values. They want the things that we want. They want safe streets. They want to make sure that they don't have to continue to bury their young men and women because of random gun violence. They want to make sure that they have the best schools that they possibly can and that they have those kinds of choices. They want to make sure that there is health care for everyone and that pre-existing conditions aren't something that knock them out of health care. They want to make sure that they have an opportunity to make a living. All they want is a chance to have a job where they can succeed. So I think that we speak to their values, and that's why they vote for us. I don't know why Republican women vote for somebody like Donald Trump, who is offensive to a woman like me.
You mentioned it yourself, though. We vote for our pocketbook. We vote, we want a strong economy. And if they want a strong economy, then vote Republican. Because clearly that's what we've got. We've got economic numbers like we haven't seen, stock market gangbusters. And the Republicans are delivering on the economic
Obama
side.
for setting this up.
I knew that was going to happen. I knew we'd get there. Before we get into that and parse through some of that partisanship there, which I appreciate. That's why we got you guys here. I appreciate you doing that. Let's get to some sound. Earlier today, we heard from both Andrew Gillum and from Ron DeSantis. Let's play some of that here now.
I worked hard. I mean, I think we really worked hard. I think we did as much as can be done, and I'm happy with letting the chips fall where they may. Floridians make a choice, and you gotta roll with it. So that's just the way the cookie crumbles. So if it's a fair and square, you got to go with it. I'm going to continue to be a principled leader who leads with purpose and conviction. I think that a lot of the stuff that's been thrown at me, quite frankly, has been demagogic and false. And, I'm going to turn the page on that, and I'm willing to work with everybody. But let's just be clear, the divisiveness was directed at me. It was not from me.
Us winning tonight, I think, will send a message to Mr. Trump and Mr. DeSantis as well, that the politics of hatred and of division, of separation, that they've come to an end. At least in this election, that's what we're going to show. That people are going out and they're voting for something and not against. And by voting for something, we're returning the politics of decency and what's right and what's common between all of us. All the way along, we tried to talk about the issues that matter to people. I am extremely proud that we ran a campaign focused on expanding access to health care, paying teachers what they're worth, leaning into the green economy. We've really, at every turn, in spite of all the distractions, have tried to keep voters in this state focused on what matters. I believe that that is what is going to allow us to walk away with a win today. And I'm looking forward to then turning around and going back to those voters whose votes I didn't get and letting them know that I plan to be a governor for them too.
Well, some interesting stuff there from both of those candidates. I think the thing I took away from that as a new dad is that both of them have adorable children. That was my that's one of the things I liked most about watching them both vote today. It was really cute.
It's like buying a car. You know, when you get a kid, you pay attention to everyone.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I've been watching yours.
Yeah.
We're expecting one.
And you guys are expecting. That's right. Congratulations to you guys. Keith Kate, want to welcome in again here at WFLA.com, our WFLA Now desk on election night. Thank you for staying with us here, whether you're on the app or the Facebook page or on our website. Keith, we just continue to watch these close races that we knew were going to be close get even tighter as the results come in.
Yeah, we're looking at Amendment 1 right there. This is the homestead exemption. This is 58%. Can you see the margin up there? The percent looks like 68%.
68%.
But I think that's going to pass. I don't see that failing at this point. Then you have the limit the property tax assessments.
Yeah. This was the one that was a temporary limit of 10% on property tax raises each year. Looks like 66% voting
yeah, they
to
limit
end
that. No, yeah, we want that to end.
Well, no, voting to, sorry, make that permanent.
Right,
is
right,
what,
to make it
what Amendment 2 said, yeah. Voter control of gambling here, again, looks like about 2/3 of precincts reporting 71% of people wanting to pass that amendment. Amendment 4, restoring felons' voting rights automatically for everyone who committed a felon except for murderers and sexual offenders, 64% in favor.
Yeah, that kind of surprised me a little bit, the margin on that,
really?
Actually. Yeah, I thought there was a pretty good campaign to fight against that.
That it would be great.
Yeah.
Amendment 5 here, this is the supermajority, requiring a supermajority in the legislature to raise taxes. 66% of people saying that they want it to be a supermajority. Obviously, that makes it very difficult to raise taxes. Amendment 6 was Marcy's Law. You saw a lot of, Kelsey Grammer was on a big commercial here running in the Tampa Bay area in favor of passing Marcy's Law. 62% so far in favor of that. Only 2/3 of precincts reporting for most of these amendments as of right now. This was education expense waivers. I believe this was one of the ones that children of law enforcement who are killed in the line of duty would get some extra benefits. 66% in favor of that. These are all, these all look like they might pass. Again, 2/3 of precincts reporting though. And this is the one that was maybe the most odd of those bundling amendments, a ban on offshore drilling and a ban on vaping in the workplace. Yeah. Just kind of silliness from the Constitutional Revision Commission here. But 68% of people, and that doesn't surprise me, Keith, given that we've seen so many problems with red tide and toxic algae this year. I think the environment's
I think that
big.
was the overriding influence for that.
Yeah.
State and local government structure, 63%, 37% no. So again, a lot of agreement in these amendments going forward.
I wonder how much of that is just ballot fatigue and people saying, yeah, whatever, sounds good, I'll vote for it.
I guess. I think there's a little more educated selection process there.
I hope so.
Because, usually when you're changing the Constitution, the instinct would be, I don't really know if I want to change the Constitution that much, no matter what it is. But
that one was interesting, too. That one was interesting because 79% were in favor of Amendment 12. That's the one to ban lobbying after you complete working for in a political office for 6 years. Right now, I believe it's at 2 years. I just want to bring up, Richard, we got about 10 minutes left, so I want you to go ahead and respond, and then if there's anything you had in terms of final thoughts.
Yeah, the Kavanaugh thing was very interesting. The timing was horrible for the Democrats. Their strategy was terrible, and most of that's going to fall back on Feinstein. But the biggest difference was that any other previous Republican president would have withdrawn that nomination under that much pressure. And that's what they were playing for. And Donald Trump doesn't back up.
But was that a surprise to anyone? It wasn't a surprise to me.
Richard Nixon with Carswell and Haynesworth.
Is that right?
Give you a heads up.
Okay.
He said,
interesting.
Find a good person. But
Possibly
he's up
Andrew
again.
Gillum.
He wanted to get that nomination through. He didn't know what kind of Congress he would be facing.
Just want to update you folks. Keith Kate was just coming up to me just now, main anchor at WFLA here. Keith Kate saying that he's getting word that it's possible Andrew Gillum might be coming out to concede. Is that unusual to concede a race when they are that close?
No, it's not, and I've seen it over and over again because in recent time, okay? Back in 2000, back when we were doing a different kind of paper ballot, et cetera, there was a lot more question about what actually happened. Did we lose ballots somewhere? Was it actually counted correctly, et cetera? But because we have so much election protection activity, because of the change
it's all scanned ballots. All they're going to do is run them through the scanner one more time.
Technology, et cetera, you see it less and less, unless there is really a question in terms of, you know, malfunction in whether people turned in ballots, that sort of thing.
And I want to go ahead and get some either some video or some live shots here if we can, guys, in the control room of the Gillum and DeSantis race, because I'm just getting some word from my photographer here who is on the scene in Tallahassee at the Gillum Watch Party. And again, if we can get some shots of Gillum or DeSantis here to talk about the governor's race. He says that they are removing the teleprompter from the stage up in Tallahassee, which sort of would indicate to me that Gillum may be about to come out and concede.
He's not giving a victory speech without teleprompter.
Well, I was going to say, you don't read a losing speech, right? Or you don't write one.
Too close to call.
Either that or they're going to send someone out and say they're going to lawyer up.
Well, could be. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen, obviously, right now.
Well,
again, we got about...
Even for DeSantis, you're not going to see anything tonight because you just go to bed and sleep a little better if you're DeSantis.
I think we'll see DeSantis tonight. I think we'll see DeSantis.
You think he'll come out and claim victory?
I think no matter what happens, you'll see DeSantis come out.
We got about 9 minutes left.
Fatigues and his assault rifle.
We got about 9 minutes left here, guys. I want to go around the table. Final thoughts
taking it by
on what you saw. Ed, we'll start with you. Final thoughts on what you saw tonight. We got about 8 minutes left here. This is a live shot from Andrew Gillum's headquarters up in Tallahassee.
I think what we have been told we might see, and what polls may have told us nationally and in Florida, there's going to be a blue wave. It was sort of a slight wave, ripple, and still, in my own mind, try to sort out what happened nationally. Although I have some pretty good ideas, but I think the one thing that comes out to me is the resiliency of Donald Trump, and perhaps the clout he has that he doesn't use it until someone pushes him, his entourage pushes him to know that he carries a lot of weight, and I think a lot has to do with him. Even though he did suffer a minor setback in the House, but the vote difference is only about 20 people, and you got enough conservative Democrats that could go with Republicans and neutralize them.
It's a great point. Massive amount of clout from the president, clearly winning this race for DeSantis and probably Scott by extension there, if that's what we end up seeing. Alma, no doubt, I believe we'll see the president on Twitter turning that blue wave into a blue ripple within the next few hours.
Well,
a down wave.
He certainly has a way of being colorful.
I guarantee you hashtag blue ripple will be trending before long.
I'm sure he's got something to say
get on
about
Twitter
that.
right now
But
with
here is the thing. We've said all along, I've said all along, that the only polls that matter are those where you cast your vote. And so, poll, no poll, et cetera, the only polls that mattered in the end were where people cast their votes. That played itself out well. My big concern, my takeaway from this is, okay, how do we govern Florida now? How do we ensure that where we have a state that is so deeply divided and clearly divided to the very far right and the very far left, how do we bring this state together in a unified way to ensure that all the citizens in this state are cared for and protected?
That's a really good point. And Travis, before I toss it to you, I imagine if you're one of the 800,000 people on the lower end of the income scale here in Florida, that you might be upset because you're not going to get a Medicaid expansion now. Let's go directly to Tallahassee right now. Andrew Gillum is taking the stage here. There he is with his wife, RJ, as well as Chris King, his candidate for lieutenant governor. And it looks as though Andrew Gillum's about to take the mic. Let's go directly to Tallahassee.
All right. Well, I tell you, it is quite a treat to see that y'all are still here. On behalf of Chris and Kristen, my wife RJ, our families, we could not be prouder of the way that we ran this race. We couldn't be prouder. We could not be more thankful for the support that was shown by each and every one of you all the way along this path. We recognize that, you know, we didn't win it tonight. We didn't win this transaction, but I want y'all to know that is just it, a transaction. That what we believe in still holds true today. I got to tell you, as I stand here on the highest of 7 hills in Tallahassee, Florida, the campus that gave so much to me and to my wife, RJ. Many a days for those students who were around when we were here as students, we marched plenty of times from this very set up to the Capitol. We let our voices be heard. We didn't shrink from the challenges. We didn't shrink from power. We spoke truth to power. And just because we didn't always come out victorious, we didn't retreat. We stood up. We stood strong. We spoke out because we recognized that we had power too. Earlier this evening, I called Mr. Ron DeSantis and congratulated him on what we expect will be him as the next governor of the great state of Florida. But I want you to know that in spite of our congratulating him on his victory this evening, nothing that we believe in is compromised. I still believe that we ought to pay teachers what they're worth. I still believe that. I still believe that we ought to clean up our environment, our air, our water quality, our beaches, our shores. I still believe that we ought to have the kind of economy where people are able to work one job instead of 2 and 3 jobs in order to make ends meet. I'm extremely proud that this evening, the voters of the state of Florida decided to pass Amendment 4. Proud about that. That is just one step closer to getting us where it is that we need to be as a state. Y'all, I want to encourage you not to give up. I want to encourage you to stick to the fight. I want you to know that every step of this way, even though I won't have the blessing of serving as the next governor of the state of Florida, I still plan to be on the front lines right alongside every single one of you when it comes to standing up for what it is that we believe in. As I said all along the campaign trail, power sees nothing without a demand. It never has and it never will. We still have to be willing to show up every single day and demand our seat at the table. We got to be willing, inside of elections and outside of elections, to say that our voices still matter, that we still have relevance. I still believe and I still trust the voters. We may not have all shown up in the way that we thought and hoped that we would, but I still believe that there are still more of us who believe in what is common and what is decent and what is right. And I believe in the long run, good always wins out over evil. I still believe that. Many of you all along the trail heard me talk rather repeatedly about my grandmother. Someone pointed out that she was the real winner of the governor's race. My grandmother, who poured so much into us, because my mother and father, as I would often share, would have to get up so early in the morning and go off to work. They would load us up in the car and take us over to my grandmama's house where we would sleep just a little bit longer. And my grandmother would often have a ritual. It was a 2-step ritual. The first phase of that is that she'd grab her bottle of olive oil, sometimes cooking oil, whatever the shiniest oil was that she can get her hands on. And she would build a cross across my forehead. It was her way of sending us out into the day with a blessing that no harm would come our way. And then she would have this refrain where she would say, "Boy, go to school. Mind your teachers. Get your lesson. And one day bring that education home."